Yo, what's up, everybody? How we doing, man? It is another Wide League charity tournament. Thank you guys all so freaking much for hopping in with me. I do appreciate it. If I do seem a little bit scatterbrained, it's because, well, I haven't done one of these in a hot minute, man. It's been a long time since the Wide League has had a casted charity or just a tournament in general like this. So bear with me if I'm a little slow or if we make a little mistakes. It's bound to happen. But thank you all so much for coming in and hanging out with me, man. I do appreciate it so much. You guys are all freaking fantastic. Y'all showed up strong on this one, so thank you guys. A few things before we start the tournament. I just want to give a shout out to all of our amazing sponsors. Glitch Energy, Space Panda, Engage, Firemind, our Wide League moderator, and myself have donated $350 total to a first place prize pool. And that first place person, whoever gets first place in this tournament, is going to be able to donate that entire amount to a charity of their choosing. So that is what everybody is fighting for in this charity or in this tournament so far. They are going to be able to give a charity of their choosing a nice chunk of change this holiday season, which is amazing. On top of that, the community, before we even started this, had a community goal of raising $300 for Toys for Tots. And that was going to be in our initial kind of registration, getting everybody in, and we broke it within like the first few days. So we opened up registration. That's why there are over 70 people in this tournament. So thank you all the amazing people who donated to Toys for Tots. We are currently sitting at, I believe, $350. I forgot to put it on this layout, so I can't see it. But we are at $350 last time I looked, which is absolutely fantastic. I can't believe that. That is actually truly amazing because we have actually, I think, almost doubled the entire charity amount that we've ever raised here at the Wide League with just this event. You guys killed it. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. The giving me the opportunity to be able to run charity events like this for the community is truly a blessing, and I cannot thank you all enough. So thank you. This is really awesome. So I'm going to go ahead. We have round one started, at least for some people. Our round one game is waiting for us, but I do have a group of amazing casters who are waiting to cast some of these games here for you this evening. We have Gerd and we have Bounce. An amazing combination, a little duo here for you. So this is going to be awesome. I'm really excited about this. And yeah, without further ado, let's get on into the action. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over to these two awesome casters. Let them get into it and get this tournament rolling. Again, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. Enjoy.
So what's up, everyone, and welcome into the Wide League Charity Tour online. My name is Gerber, here with Bounce. We're going to be your co-casters for today. We've got a great tournament for a great cause for Toys for Tots. Bounce, break it down for us. What's going on today?
Yeah, so we are raising money for Toys for Tots. It is a Christmas-based charity that goes to aim to give these a little bit of a underprivileged children something to celebrate about during the holidays. Gets them a nice bit of money, as the Wide League typically does. You know, back in, I believe, what is it, October, did the previous one being for the Joyful Heart Foundation. Now moving into the holidays, a couple of days off of Christmas, going into Toys for Tots, and we're doing that by celebrating the return of the heavy hitters. The Regulation H has returned, G has returned. Regulation H has gone back into hibernation. And Gerd, there's a lot to look forward to today.
Yeah, and you got to mention that the first place player of this tour ending tomorrow will get $300 added to their charity of choice. So not only are you entering this tournament to raise money for Toys for Tots, but you're also helping a charity that you want to support yourself if you win.
Absolutely. But there is Pokemon to be played, and there's a couple of things that are changing once again in the tides of the competitive meta, and that is the return of paradoxes, the return of the restricted format, and the return of my girl, one of my favorite Pokemon that I've ever had in my entire life. Ogerpon is back, baby.
Ogerpon is honestly one of the best additions to this generation. It's so good because of all of its different forms. You can have the tankiness of Assault Vest. You can have the firepower of getting a Swords Dance. You can get the absolute sturdiness off of Rock Ogerpon, or you can go extremely fast and be defiant like that Grass Ogerpon as well. So it's been such a good usage Pokemon throughout the entire format whenever it was legal back in regulations F and G, and now G again for a second time around. And we'll have to see what else is going on. We do have the restricteds back again, and it's going to be legal. You get one restricted per team, so all those box art legendaries, something like those Lugias, Groudons, Kyogres, Kyurems, all those things are going to be legal once again.
And not to mention the big hitters of the restricted format slots. You got the Calyrexes, both Shadow Rider and Ice Rider. Miraidon is returning as well. The big three, I like to call them. So good, like just unbelievable amounts of damage, unbelievable utility. It basically one gets rid of the entire threat of Amoonguss for a little, or at least a little bit of the threat of it. Others like to go into Trick Room, and then the others love to get those boost straight up from a KO, either from the Ghost Spread move or the Ice Spread move that doesn't have a downside.
Yep, no accuracy misses here. It's not like Kyogre or Groudon signature attack, so you're pretty much getting everything scot-free. Obviously, with Shadow Rider, you do have that ability to whiff because of normal types on the other side of the field, like those Ferrographs, like those Blood Mirror Salunas. And one of the other restricted Pokemon we are going to be seeing later on in this round number 1, Terapagos, is a very good Pokemon against something like the Calyrex Shadow Rider.
And let's not also forget about the Pokemon that are probably winning and losing through the change back to Regulation G. We had a little bit of a Hisuian revolution during the most recent regulation. The Hisuian Pokemon, both Ursaluna and Sneasler, really ran riot through that format, and I am very excited to see if that retains its momentum from the discovery of both the use of Unburden, the use of Poison Touch and Dire Claw. But right now, we're gonna go see something else, and Metagross coming to the field over here to start off our Regulation G return.
Yeah, let's hop on over to our first match where both players are just beginning real soon, like you're talking about. We do have those Calyrex and Terapagos, but let's talk about that Metagross what you were talking about just a second. It has a very standard is set that you would like to see. Assault Vest able to just give you that special defense boost at the cost of not being able to use status moves. Metagross not really going to be using status moves in general, maybe outside of Protect if you're able to use it. You have Earthquake for great spread damage. You have Psychic Fangs, breaks through those screens, 100% accurate, very nice. Bullet Punch, really strong stab move. On top of the fact that it can get those one-hit KOs onto certain Fluttermanes if they're not trained to be that bulky. And Ice Punch, honestly, just a good move to hit those Dragon types.
Yeah, I mean, Metagross has not necessarily had an insanely good run of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet so far, which is a little bit surprising because of the prominence of how well that Pokemon has done, not only in these kind of expanded dex formats, but also just in general. It's a very, very solid pseudo legendary. It's got 2 stats over those 130 marks in the attack and defense, and still solid bulk for both like 80 HP, I believe, and 90-ish special defense, especially with that assault vest now. It's probably going to be a little bit more annoying to get rid of, even if both Pokemon have super effective moves on it.
You know what's one legendary we haven't talked about? The menace of the format, and it's coming back. It's going to be Rapid Strike Urshifu. It's going to be on both of these trainers' teams, and it is a strong, strong Pokemon. They're running slightly different sets. The one from Dai is actually going to be running a safety goggles set, which is primarily to beat opposing Amoonguss or Volcarona if they even exist, or other Rage Powder users, to make sure that you can bypass those redirections, get those knockouts as much as you can. And then on the opposite side, you have the more standard set where you have that choice scarf, allowing you to outspeed certain Pokemon that have those higher base stats of 135, like those Chien-Paos, like those Fluttermanes, if they're not booster speed. You have that U-turn to get that pivot in. You have Aqua Jet to get that small priority hit in. Close combat's always a signature move. You also have that Surging Strikes, the 3-hit critical move, one of the best moves in the game.
It is a ridiculous Pokemon. And I think a lot of players, including myself, have been a little bit nervous about the return of the Urshifus. And while the Dark form isn't necessarily the most popular one, it's still an absolute threat for those people who love protecting.
Why don't we circle in to our first match? Remember, this is a best of 3 limitless tour here for the Charity Rumble number 74. We're going to be getting some donations for Toys for Tots later on. But first, let's talk about these leads. We got Farigiraf and Rillaboom on the opposing side, and we got the classic Flurmane and Chiyu lead.
This is a really dangerous lead, especially into Rillaboom and Farigiraf. Chi-Yu plus Fluttermane can do some serious damage to any pairing if there's no resistance on there. So you're probably looking at seeing Rillaboom either switch out or looking for either some kind of priority move to mess with the Chi-Yu at least. Because then if you can get that Trick Room up, you have a little bit of a better chance going into the next turn.
Yep. I couldn't get a confirmation because the language isn't German, but I'm going to assume that this Fluttermane is the Speed Booster variant. It has that Icy Wind and Taunt, which typically you see on Speed Booster Flutters. So you're able to outspeed other Fluttermane and other fast Pokemon to get that disruption in. If you're the Rillaboom on the opposite side, you could go for something like a Fake Out, but you have to be careful that this Chi-Yu does have Terra Ghost. You could be Fake Out immune on both Pokemon because of that Ghost typing.
And the Terra does, in fact, come out here from the Rillaboom, puts on the Fire Hat, and gets rid of that weakness to the big Heat Wave, something that a lot of players think is quite funny, including the resident Judy. And a nice little helping hand coming out onto Farigiraf, I believe? Or is
No,
that
the
from
helping hand
Farigiraf?
went into the Rillaboom. The
Yep.
Chiyu actually decides to go for Protect, not deciding to go for an attack this turn. And we see the Grassy Glide with that helping hand boosted move going into that Fluttermane, actually surviving on 13 HP. And we see the taunt going into the Farigiraf, trying to cover for a Trick Room play.
And no more Trick Room on the field here means Chiyu has a little bit more room to navigate, and especially because the Terra is also gone, Farigiraf is a danger of being knocked out, maybe even by a Oko because of the beads, or is it beads of ruin that is for the Chiyu, or is
Yeah,
that
the
yes, the
Chiyu does have the
beads of
Beads of
ruin.
Ruin. Yep, and
Nice
then we see the
protect coming out.
protect on to the Fluttermane, trying to just be careful of that Grassy Glide. We do see the Dark Pulse hitting into the Farigiraf, and it actually
Oof.
survives. That is a Beads of Ruin Dark Pulse on a Chiyu, and the Farigiraf survives. And actually, the Rillaboom going to be going for a U-turn into that Chiyu slot, breaking that potential Focus Sash. And now you get to pivot into another attacker.
And in comes the Calyrex Ice. There still isn't any kind of a Trick Room on the floor here, but that still is a danger no matter what, especially with the very low health on that Fluttermane and the ability to possibly even pick up this KO if Chiyu and Fluttermane don't play this correctly.
So the tough part about the situation for this Calyrex is that it's weak to both Heat Wave and those Snarls and Dark Pulses, so it could get one hit KO'd by this Chi-Yu. The Fluttermane does still have Taunt, so you could go for Taunt into the Calyrex, trying to prevent another Trick Room from going up if it were to survive an attack from the Chi-Yu or a double up.
And it looks like that their double up is potentially going to happen here. The Heat Wave being selected as well. The Protect coming out right there from Calyrex. Ice Rider called out the double up on there. But if this Heat Wave does not miss onto the Farigiraf, they're still staying out on the field and potentially losing a Pokemon here.
Yep, we do see the Protect hit onto the Calyrex. The Heat Wave will connect onto to the Farigiraf, picking up that KO at that sliver of red HP. And now we're going to be moving into this next turn. We know for a fact that the Rillaboom is in the back. We have not gotten a confirmation on that final Pokemon. Let's see what it is going to be. And it's going to be this Farigiraf, the Rillaboom again.
And this is what's so dangerous about this lead of Chi-Yu Fluttermane. Just damage. It's just pure damage. And we do see a Metagross in the back there, incoming actually right now for the showing side, and most likely going to be a protect in here from Chi-Yu just to avoid any of that chip damage incoming, because he resists both resists both stabs, but there most likely is a high horsepower in store if Calyrex can get it off in time.
Yep, and looks like Grassy Terrain's still up, so this Fluttermane is still going to be susceptible to these Grassy Glides. We do see the Chiyu deciding to go for that Protect. No Terra is going to be burned this turn. It is going to be, looks like Fake Out into the Chiyu, if I got that call correctly. Let's see what's going to be happening next. Fluttermane should be moving. It is actually going to be going for the taunt, so it's trying to deny any Trick Room for being set up. But what if it's going to go for a Glacial Lance? And it looks like it is not. Actually, no, it does look like it is, unless it's stopping territory. It is going to be Glacial Lance hitting into that Fluttermane. So now this Calyrex Ice Rider is going to be getting that +1 boost because of the As 1 ability.
Now, it's going to be a little bit more dangerous for Chiyu to stay on the floor here because you do have to really be careful the extra damage, especially with Chiyu's lack of bulk, could potentially be a picked up KO there for Calyrex, but Chiyu is Chiyu and is able to do super effective damage both ways, and there's no Terra on the field for Calyrex to lose weaknesses or gain a resistance from Heat Wave. But incoming the Terrapagos, the turtle is here.
This is one of the strongest Pokemon in Regulation G because once you Terastallize, you gain some HP, you gain some more bulk, your stats are increased. And if your opponent has Terastallized and you have Terastallized yourself and use the Terra Star Storm attack, you actually hit for super effective damage onto any opposing Terra Pokemon. So that damage is going to be increased. And you also have the Beads of Ruin from the Chiyu giving your opponents Spadef drops, so you're actually hitting even harder.
We see Pelipper coming in to drop a little bit of that drizzle. A Pokemon that probably is getting a little bit of power crept in this regulation, but Terrapagos right into the Terra, gets a nice little mountain of extra shiny, and is going to start throwing out these big spread moves. Pelipper probably came in to try to stop them, but unfortunately, it most likely means that Rillaboom or Pelipper is taking a large amount of damage here.
And here comes the Terra Star Storm. The rain and the grassy terrain are now gone. It is going to be a KO onto the Rillaboom from near full health. We looks like we did see the Heat Wave miss from the Chiyu earlier in this turn. So you aren't able to get that 2-hit combo of Heat Wave and Star Storm to pick up this Pelipper at 1 HP. And then you have this Calyrex coming in the back. So right now it is a very commanding position for Dai.
It's probably going to be a little bit rough. However, Calyrex only really needs to worry about getting doubled up by Dark Pulse at the current moment, because they'll be taking a little bit less damage with the rain up in the air here. But if they can get off any kind of trick room here, Calyrex definitely has the potential to pull things out of here. But
Yep.
little retreat into the Metagross incoming right now for Dai, and it's gonna drop the shiny Metagross. Nice little Steven illusion there. The wide
Yep.
guard comes out from Pelipper as well, and we're maybe seeing the trick room possibly get put up here.
I do like this ability to just go for that Dark Pulse into the Pelipper instead of trying to read or protect. You know the Pelipper is going to be going for Wide Guard anyway. It looks like the Trick Room is going to be going up, but I definitely understand why you wanted to do this. If you get yourself into a 3v1 position, you are in a very good space to be able to pick up those KOs if you are die and then just, clean sweep the rest of this game without having to risk a 3v2.
And especially because at the current moment, there is probably a little bit less damage coming from the Metagross super effectively, because it really only is Bullet Punch. And that did what? I think about a third, maybe a little bit more than a fourth of damage right there. But unfortunately, the Calyrex is going to attack into the protecting Chiyu, and that chip damage is a lot bigger when you don't get anything out of it yourself.
I was actually shocked. It was high horsepower into Chiyu. It wasn't even in Glacial Lance, understanding that it is on a double resisted attack. The Chiyu going to be switching back out into this terrestrialized Terrapagos. That's a tongue twister. Ice Bullet Punch once more hitting into this Calyrex. Let's see what the
Oof.
Calyrex is going to be going for. It is going to be the high horsepower into that Terrapagos, but it does not do that much damage at all. And another Bullet Punch and combo attack should be able to pick up this game number 1 victory.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that second one of those bullet punches did crit, so it did a lot of damage into that Calyrex, and there is just not enough. Wait, wait,
It's
wait. Why
Power
did that?
Gem.
Oh, okay. I thought it did the ground animation, and I was like, wait, why?
Wait, what ground animation are you talking about?
Like the ground terrestrialize animation, and I was like, wait,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
game
yeah,
just
yeah.
bugged there. Well, that is going to be game one going right there, and it was very well played as well. I mean, just doing super, super well to deny Trick Room early on was huge in that matchup, just allowing Chiyu to kind of run riot on the other team.
Yeah, and the Rillaboom almost being forced to terrestrialize early because you are getting threatened by that Heat Wave. Heat Wave typically is going to be hitting that Frigoraph for pretty strong damage because that Bees of Ruin, and if you get that added super effective damage onto that Rillaboom, it's just doing so much. So you kind of have to feel like you have to terrestrialize in order to save the Rillaboom, potentially get a KO onto the Flutter Mane. But then you're so susceptible with that Calyrex Ice Rider in the back because of the Chi Yu. And also, even if you Terra on any of the Pokemon, you have to be very careful because that Terapagos in the back will almost always Terra in every situation where you bring it to a game. So it's going to be hitting for super effective later on.
Yeah, and we didn't see that Urshifu that might have been a good call to bring to bring to the floor, outspeeding both or outspeeding at least the Chiyu in that situation. But it just really felt like that the Trick Room being outplayed in that early game, especially because it forced Rillaboom to
Mhm.
get rid of a very valuable resource, was kind of the nail in the coffin there.
Yeah, something that we didn't really see in either match. I know we were just talking about it before the match began. Was no Urshifu. Both players deciding to not bring the Urshifu. If you're playing for die, I understand why you don't want to bring the Urshifu because you feel like the Rillaboom is going to be a very big piece of what Metallic is trying to be going for in terms of game plan. You know, that Grassy Glide might be able to get that one hit KO depending on how the Urshifu is trained. The fake out is definitely something that you don't want to be getting hit with, especially if you're Urshifu. So I understand where you're going with that.
Exactly. But I mean, Terapagos is also I don't necessarily think it's up there with the Calyrexes and Miraidon of how people would, I guess, tier list onto the restricteds, but it is definitely a insane defensive wall, both having an insane ability and having the ability to hit those Terra Pokemon for a lot of damage early on.
Yep. And as we begin our second match, we're going to see what kind of leads we're going to be seeing. We did see the Chi and Fluttermane engage strong and could be strong into whatever we're going to be seeing from Metallic side, but it's up to Metallic to make that adjustment. Let's see, game two, we do see the Urshifu and Pelipper. The Rain Core is coming out this time around, and we're going to be seeing a switch up. The Chi is now an Ogrepon Hearthflame and the Fluttermane on the side.
And there is the girl. She is back and instantly grabbing that big ol' attack boost right in there. And Fluttermane's going to consume that nice little booster energy, getting a little extra boost onto a stat in there. I believe it's speed, but I can't read German. But now both a little bit of a different from both of these players. A lot of people sometimes like to stick with the same lead, but definitely sticking with Fluttermane here is Kamshaft here, and now Urshifu is in to hopefully be a little bit more pressure towards that instead of having to force that early terrestrialization.
Yeah, with this Rain Core makes it a little interesting. The Urshifu does have that choice scarf on the opposing side, so it would be faster normally, but because I believe it is speed booster flutter, it would actually be faster than the Urshifu. So deciding I'm just going to pivot out, go into this Rillaboom. If I'm going to get hit by that Moon Blast, you're going to be taking it a little bit better because it is Assault Vest Rillaboom. We do see the Follow Me, but this time it's actually going to be the Icy Wind trying to drop that speed, get that chip damage onto both Pokemon, going to be crucially getting rid of that ability to use that focus sash. So now this Palper is a little bit, hanging dry right now. Does have that weather ball in the rain, getting that extra damage, hitting into the Ogre Pond for just over half.
And now we see that I mean, Rillaboom coming out here is it's a pretty solid switch, especially because that Ivy Cudgel is not going to do as much damage with the rain up as well. And Rillaboom having that big HP, big defensive stat can tank a little bit more of that damage, but at the current moment is at half. So now it becomes a little bit of the guessing game, right? Where are you going to switch out this Orgamon, which very fast, very quickly makes the decision to do and pulls in that Metagross for the second time in the set.
Yeah, the Metagross was super strong in game one, being able to get in a position where you can use those bullet punches for KOs, and the Moonblast going to be going into this Palper. Does get this special attack drop that is going to be crucial. Woodhammer on this Rillaboom in the terrain does pick up the one-hit KO. Now this Rillaboom getting rid of one of the more annoying Pokemon on Dai's side. No more taunt now, so if Dai has that Trick Room option with this Calyrex, it can be coming in, potentially going to be setting it up.
Yeah, if they comes to now does not have the threat of that extremely fast Fluttermane on the field, so now Scarf Urshifu is an extreme danger to most of the Pokemon in the entire format, really. That those triple hit on the crit damage as well could do a massive amount of damage, especially doing good damage to this Terrapagos, who will resist the first one, but still take the full damage from the second and third hits. Wide guard coming out right there from the Pelipper, trying to get away from a Terra Starstone, but a Power Gem comes out, picks up that KO on Pelipper very, very simply. Now the wide guard is in fact gone, so Terra Starstorm is a threat once again.
Yeah, normally you want to go for the Terastallization into the Terra Star Storm, but you don't always have to do it. It is not a move that you always want to be clicking into a Pokemon that has Wide Guard, because then you are locked in. So you might as well just get a trade, get that Pelipper off the field, so no more Wide Guard later on in this match. But you obviously do take a little bit of chip damage from that U-turn. The Metagross is going to be going to the Ice Punch, trying to get that hit into the Rillaboom, but it is now switched into that Rapid Strike Urshifu. So it's a tough position to be in right now. The Terrapagos has had its Terra Shell broken, so it doesn't get that natural resist on when it's full HP. You pretty much have to switch into this Ogre Pond to reset off of Power Gem into a different attack, but you're also leaving your Metagross wide open.
And just like that, you see Ogerpon coming back on. Big threat here would be if you get hit with that U-turn on Rillaboom to get that super effective damage onto onto it. But it's gonna be a fake out straight out here into that, and then incoming the rapid strikes. That's one. That's two. Is this going to pick up that KO on Metagross late on? And it is going to pick up that KO. And that is extremely important currently because that Ogerpon is already at half of health. And we're going to pull out the next stops by aiming directly for that Terrapagos to get rid of its shell, probably once again.
Yep, and here comes the big restricted in the back. We have not seen a Terastallization yet on Dai's side of the field, so we are more than likely going to be seeing this Terastallized Terrapagos using that Terra Star Storm, getting those big KOs. The Urshifu is still the fastest thing on this field at the moment because of that choice scarf, so it'll likely be using that Surging Strikes attack into either the Terrapagos or into that Hearth Flame Ogerpon, as we do see the Rillaboom switching out into this Calyrex.
Yeah, and that rapid strike's most likely coming out. Is that potentially a Terra into the water for that extra damage? And you're oh no, straight. Sorry, my fault. Straight into the Stella again, Stellar Terra again, and Starstorm was clicked from comp on this side. But if that Urshifu does enough damage, because it's going to be a follow me into the Ogerpon here. If Rillaboom can do, or sorry, if Urshifu, bears get confusing, can do
Yep.
enough damage here, then a 1v3 is certainly possible, even with a huge thing. And that is absolutely going to pick up this second KO in here in a row for Urshifu. And still, no Terra has been popped yet. And I kind of doubt that it will until it is needed because of the current Stella form right now.
Yeah, more often than not, you're not going to want a Terra unless you can guarantee that you are faster than the Terrapagos so you don't take that super effective hit. We do see the Terra Starstorm doing a great chunk of damage into both the Calyrex and the Urshifu, but it's just not enough. And the Terrapagos is now the only Pokemon left on the field. You have a Rillaboom that can come into the from the back with that fake out pressure, and these Terrapagos is choice locked into Terra Starstorm for the remainder of this game. So this one's looking pretty grim.
And Urshifu doing a nice amount of damage, about half right there before he's going down now to another Starstorm in here protected there onto Calyrex. That's definitely enough, not enough damage unless there is a crit incoming here for the other Calyrex. Actually, sorry, not even. We don't even have to think about that because it's literally just going to get fake outed instantly as soon as this Rillaboom comes in, and that most likely is going to be this game too.
Yep, fake out. You can go for a single target Glacial Lance. On the following turn, you pick up the final KO if the Terrapagos is low enough with that Grassy Glide, or you can go for a Wood Hammer. You don't even have to Terrastallize, obviously, because Terrastar Storm is technically considered a stellar type attack. There are no natural resists, so you just get basic damage. So terrestrializing there is suboptimal. And we do see the Trick Room actually being played into. So now for the remainder of this match, or at least up to 4 turns, the Calyrex will be the first thing to move.
I'm kind of assuming that that the Rillaboom here is running that Assault Vest, so it's going to take less than optimal damage in here. But I mean, this is it looks like we're going to a game 3 now. Yep, there goes that Terapagos. Game 3 is on the horizon here. A very, very great, just extremely well played to bounce back from that game 1.
Yeah, Metallic deciding to go for this Rain core with the Pelipper to really on lead. Because if you do go Terapagos instead of a Pelipper, you could pretty much just go for a wide guard, and it's pretty much the most safe thing that you could do because then you're forced to really use a different attack on that Terapagos. While you also have this Rapid Strike Urshifu, bringing it out and then switching into Rillaboom allowed you to be able to pick up the Fluttermane, which has been kind of a thorn in Metallic's side because it has that faster taunt. It has that Icy Wind to control the speed. Moonblast still does so much damage. It's a Fluttermane. What are you expecting out of that? But once it was gone, like the backbone of the team started to fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, like you could see that it definitely seemed like the plan for Metallic since the beginning of the game was to get rid of that faster Fluttermane, as it was the only thing fast enough to really pressure the hard hitters that had weaknesses to Fluttermane's fairy type moves. And once it was gone, the game just spiraled out of control for Metallic's side.
Yeah, and like you were talking about, the Rillaboom does have that Assault Vest, so it would be taking less damage than it otherwise normally would because of the Assault Vest increasing its special defense. There's not much else on these teams that are that particular. We did see the Metagross in this match, but it didn't really offer that much. But I guess the big factor in that match was that Urshifu just getting so much value. We didn't see it at all game 1 for Metallic, but being able to come in game 2 and really pick up like 2 to 3 KOs was really solid.
Yeah, and Comstu really I think the Ogre Pawn was a little bit of a mistake there. While it does offer a lot of good redirection and good pressure with its massive attack stat, it definitely did not seem to defer the game plan for Metal as much as you really want your Ogre Pawn to be doing, because you either want to be scared enough of it that you don't want to throw anything risky out there because they will pick up a KO on you with a big Ivy Cuddle, or you don't want to get redirected so the other Pokemon in the on the floor picks up whatever it needs to pick up, either a boost or gets a clean switch in, etc., etc. And it just didn't really give as much value as you hope it would.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I don't believe the Heartflame Urgerpon actually went for an attack. I think it mostly either switched out or used Follow Me to try to keep its fellow partners alive, but in the end, it just didn't didn't really see an Ivy Cudgel for any damage. So as we go into game 3, we have to see what kind of leads we're going to be seeing on the opposing side for Metallic. It is going to be a switch up for a third time, Incineroar and for Rigoraph, as we do see the Fluttermane and the Metagross for game number 3.
And it's a very interesting lead here because Metagross has actually done some pretty good pressure for most of this set so far, but we have never seen it as the lead yet. So I'm interested to see what kind of pressure that this Metagross will offer, especially because this is another lead that we haven't seen either. We saw Frigiraf in game 1, but we have not seen the Incin yet at all. So I'm wondering what the plan is now that we see the probably best non-legendary Pokemon of all time in VGC on the floor.
Yeah, normally when you see this for Rigoraph and Incineroar lead, you typically want to go for Fake Out and Trick Room, but because of this Fluttermane's ghost typing, it is immune to that Fake Out naturally, and the taunt can go right into this Farigiraf. The Farigiraf does not have that mental herb. It is actually the grassy seed. So if it were to get taunted, it's just kind of a sitting duck, and its only attacking move is actually Dazzling Gleam, which is not even a stab move, so you're really not doing that much damage to a steel type and a high special defense Pokemon.
Yeah, the Fluttermane has bulk in one area, and it is that high special defense stat. But Metagross is going to get switched out here right into Terapagos pretty early on, and this is going to change a little bit of the game plan for Metallic now because Metagross is no longer on the floor. You don't have as much of that risk of just getting straight up earthquaked into Terra here, or you don't have the risk of losing your item to knockoff as well. But Parting Shot is going to come out here, go directly onto that Fluttermane, drop its special attack stat. And because that booster energy is going onto the speed, that isn't saved by that consumption.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting situation. The Incineroar actually switching out with the parting shot, getting that special attack drop onto the Flutter Mane. That could be critical because now it's doing less damage with those icy winds and particularly with the Moonblast. As the Calyrex Ice is going to be switched in on that Incineroar slot. The important thing to know right now is it looks like it was actually foul play into this Terapagos, which actually breaks that Terra Shell. So now you don't get that natural resist at full HP. So now you do have this one special attack drop, Flutter Mane not doing that much damage, and you do have this Terapagos, which could do some significant amount of damage, but it is almost forced to Terra to get that extra HP bulk.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's now a little bit of a much more risky situation for Comp here because of how much damage that Glacial Lance will do, and especially because Fluttermane, we all know the really garbage stats of it, forces it to do this, switch out to something that's more defensive and can probably tank a Glacial Lance here, while Terapagos is probably going to tank a little bit more damage. And we have another switch there from the Farigiraf right in back into the famous, the beloved, the hated, the Incineroar. Back in Intimidate doesn't really work against these two, but it is a solid defensive Pokemon in here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what this turn is going to be playing out. The Fluttermane switching out means that it's not going to be able to go for taunt. So if this Calyrex decided to go for something like a Trick Room, it would have been a very scary situation for Dai to have to play out the rest of this game in Trick Room. We do see the Stellar Terrestrialization onto Terapagos going for that Terra Starstorm, getting the double hit connection. There's no Terra on the opposing side, so it's just straight up damage. But that Beads of Ruin increasing that damage. We do see a Glacial Lance going to be hitting into both Pokemon, doing significant amount of damage, about half on each Pokemon.
Yeah, and now they're just really well done there to fully to pull in Chiyu and get that extra damage here because Calyrex is now at risk of fainting regardless of who hits him now. Can't really get that Trick Room up right now, so potentially forcing a switch out. And it's really risky to keep your your half health Pokemon on the floor here, but a really good read could just lead to the victory here for Metallic.
Yep, it looks like we're actually seeing a terrestrialization on the opposing side of the field for Metallic in front of a Terapagos, which is an incredible read. It looks like, my guess, it's fake out into that what was the Terapagos slot, now the Metagross, trying to go for a Tricker, but you still have to watch out for this Chiyu. It looks like it didn't get baited by the fake out. It's just going to be a Heat Wave. It's actually going to hit
Oh,
both targets.
no.
It's going to live. And the Trick Room is going to be set up here. And this is a bad situation if you're Die.
Exactly what we just said. That did nothing. What an incredible read. It is a terrifying aspect to terrestrialize in front of a Terra Starstorm Terapagos. But Metallic said, I'm calling this retreat. And now you are in a position as a Calyrex to pick up some big KOs in here. But Metagross is still on the floor. And you have to choose a target to hit with this high horsepower. Both of them are weak to it, but the remaining one possibly could pick up a KO here. And you see, was that a high horsepower directly into it? Oh no,
No, it
Glacial
was.
Lance. Oh
Yeah,
no.
Glacial Lance is still on a resist, so it doesn't do that much damage. Let's see who goes next. The Incineroar is actually going to be hitting into the Metagross, and it picks up
Oh
the
no.
KO from that HP range, so it is going to be going down before what can only be assumed was an Earthquake could have picked up a double KO on the opposing side.
Wow, the Incineroar just underspeeding that Metagross, and Metagross even with a zero IV zero IV in speed, zero EVs is relatively same speed as Incineroar. So that was a little bit of a toss up depending on how high or low you want to put your Metagross. But Incineroar still living on this 1 HP as well is insane because now Terapagos has to tank 2 hits here and maybe even just seeing a high horsepower come out here for this Chiyu.
Yeah, you have to keep thinking about that. Trick Room is up. The Calyrex hitting that Glacial Lance into Terapagos because again, the Terapagos can't protect its item. It's going to be choice locked into an attacking move. Might be able to take one Glacial Lance, but you have to remember that Incineroar is still going to be moving before the Terapagos, trying to get that attack with the Flare Blitz. Probably going to be picking up a second KO. So the Terapagos, one of the biggest pieces of Dai's team, has to switch out into the Fluttermane in the back to try to survive an extra turn. Actually going to be a Calyrex protect trying to keep it alive from presumably a Chi-Yu attack. And as we see this Flare Blitz going into the now switch in Fluttermane, bringing it down to 75%.
And that is, see, now we're in a really weird position here because how I don't know, I think there's two more turns of Trick Room after this if I counted correctly. Don't hold me to that yet, but you really need to get rid of this Chi-Yu on the floor here, especially because it can do enormous amounts of damage to your remaining Pokemon. But Grassy Terrain is now up, and the threat of Grassy Glide means that you have the ability to just target the Chi-Yu if you are a Metallic here, especially because there's no health left to survive a 72, I believe, is what the nerfed number is at the current moment for Grassy Glide, if I'm remembering
Are you talking
correctly.
about base damage or
Not plus the grassy terrain boost.
too much math to do right now? But
Too
the
much
most
math.
yeah, but I
It
can
can't. It
almost
can't survive.
yeah, I would assume that a Grassy Glide in the terrain would be able to pick up the Fluttermane at the HP range that it is at. I think this situation is basically saying you have to hit this high horsepower into the Chi-Yu if it doesn't protect. If you don't, then it's going to be very scary. The Fluttermane trying to protect to just make sure that you survive an attack, but it's actually going to be the fake out into the Chi-Yu reading the Fluttermane protect, and it actually looks like it was going to be Glacial Lance getting that double target. The Chi-Yu is going to be going down. It's a little bit frail on the physical side, so it's not able to take that attack too well.
Yeah, very well done there, just to prioritize getting rid of Chi-Yu on the floor. And as far as I know, if there's some word in German that clues me in, I don't think Trick Room is over. And if it's not, there's some big damage incoming with this Glacial Lance.
Yep, because now it's just going to be another Glacial Lance that is now at +1 because of the as one ability, doing so much more damage into the Terrapagos, especially. And now you also still have this full HP Rillaboom that's going to be offering those Wood Hammers at incredible damage output.
I believe we see there is the Glacial Lance to take out the two, and Metallic comes from behind to pick up this set 2-1 of our first broadcast of this charity rumble for the Wide League.
What a strong first match. It's only round 1 of this tournament, and we've already seen a reverse 2-0 as our match, and it was a good one. We did see multitude of different cores. We saw that rain core with Pelipper and Urshifu in game number 2. We saw that Incineroar, Ferrograph, Trick Room based core with that Rillaboom and Calyrex in the back, which inevitably let Metallic win that match. But we also saw in game 1 where we had that Chew and Fluttermane core being able to take that solid victory with those great positionings.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was just incredibly well done to target prioritize the Pokemon that Metallic needed to win that one over Comp's Tube there. And it started out as a incredibly bad start for running into Chi-Yu Fluttermaiden with a Rillaboom, forced a Terra, and the game was over almost instantly. But very well done to bring it back, stay focused, and be able to pick off the Pokemon you needed to while picking up some incredible reads. That read on the Terrastalize for Trick Room, mwah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's some of the things that you need to be able to do. Find that one way out. You know that you want Trick Room up for the remainder of the match, but what's the best way to get it up? You did have that ability to call it, hey, I'm going to Terrastalize, but I'm really going to be letting the Chi do whatever it wants. If it went for Dark Pulse in that situation to the Calyrex, there could have been a chance that even if the Calyrex survived because it did Terra, that there was a flinch, but sometimes you have to hedge those bets and see if it actually works out. And it just did because the Chi decided to go for the Heat Wave because, maximum value, you can hit 2 Pokemon that are weak to fire moves. Why not go for it? I'm not expecting the Calyrex to be going for Terrastalization in front of it. Already Terra'd Terrapagos that could hit super effective with Terrastar Storm. So that's just kind of the mentality that you have to have. That's just the outs that you have to be able to win those matches in game 3.
The beauty of Pokemon, where sometimes the option that in general seems like a silly option could be the biggest read of your life, and just like that, the game just runs to your favor, and incredibly well done. But I'm kind of sad we didn't really see much of that Urshifu in those games, and that's the thing that I have been just dreading
I'm
since.
gonna let you know, I'm fine with it for now. We saw Urshifu in one of those games, and it was very strong. But we didn't need to see any more of it right now. We've had that Sneasler domination or regulation H for most of this format. Maybe let's get us a few more tours before we have to deal with the Urshifu again. But we all know it's going to be in like top 6 usage upcoming regionals. It's going to be coming back in full force. We got a few more days left.
Metallic used it very well to kind of just get rid of the Flutter main in game 2, and the damage that it could just pump out, especially on that Metagross, was just super super good for Metallic's situation, and it led to him being able to take that game 2 and then bringing that momentum into that game 3, and that was the set.
Yep. And before we sign off for our round one and before we go into the round two, obviously, we're doing a charity stream today for Toys for Tots. If you want to make a quick donation, definitely check out the link. I know Michael is probably typing in that chat to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to donate for a great cause. And again, we're hosting a great tour for today. We have, I think, 65 people today. So we've got a lot of rounds of Swiss leading into a top cut into tomorrow. So